Good afternoon and welcome. Today is the 28th of December 2020. This is Lunchtime News on TV1, bringing you the news. I'm Zaima Ratnayaka for the Newsfirst team. Here are your headlines for this evening.
Ukrainian travel group arrives in the island. Bhikkhus oppose the burial of COVID-19 victims. Suspect dies in Veyangoda after being shot at by the police. Farmer in Sampur dies after being struck by lightning.
On to your top story for this afternoon. A suspect who had hacked off the hands and legs of another in order to obtain information on a drug racket was shot dead by police on the way to an investigation. The suspect was shot earlier this morning in Veyangoda.
The suspect was a resident of Bevanwatta, Veyangoda, named Nishanta Kumarasiri.
The suspect, who was shot dead, had been held on charges of hacking off the limbs of a person who had tipped off the police. This incident had taken place in Maligathanna, Veyangoda on the 19th. The suspect also had cases against him for several crimes, including the possession of firearms. The Western Province Crimes Division was conducting an operation with the suspect in the Halgampitia area in Veyangoda. The police had to resort using force as a result of an altercation which occurred during the operation. The suspect had died upon admission to the Watupitiwala hospital. Moreover, a driver who is a police constable had sustained injuries during the incident. He has been admitted to the Gampa hospital.
The victim, whose limbs were hacked off by the suspect, is currently receiving treatment at the ICU of the Watupitiwala hospital. Body parts of the victim were found from numerous areas, including his foot from the welding shop in Maligakanda.
A special meeting of the ruling faction will be held at 6 p.m. this evening under the auspices of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Now, according to Minister of Mass Media and Joint Cabinet spokesperson Keheliya Rambukwella, the current political situation of the country will be discussed at the meeting. Minister Rambukwella said the government's program for the upcoming year 2021 will also be discussed during the meeting. A Ukrainian travel group landed in the island today, rejuvenating the tourism industry of Sri Lanka, which was halted since the onset of COVID-19.
A group of Russian tourists were expected to arrive in the island last Saturday, the 26th of December. However, the tour was abandoned owing to a new strain of COVID-19 currently spreading across Europe. The Ukrainian tour group landed in Sri Lanka against such a backdrop. According to our correspondent, another group of tourists are expected to land at the Matala International Airport. Chairman of the Civil Aviation Authority, Upul Dharmadasa, said the group will be subjected to a PCR test and directed to quarantine following their arrival.
On to a major talking point over the recent past. The Sena caterpillar menace first emerged in 2018. 2 years down the line, the Sena caterpillar has wreaked havoc across the island and rendered farming communities helpless. As of now, only the Western Province has not been affected by this menace.
It has been reported that the Sena caterpillar has damaged maize cultivation in the north, east, north central, northwestern, central, Sabaragama, Uva and southern provinces. About 100 acres of corn cultivation in the Siraj Nagar, Niranagar, Potikene and Mullipatana villages in Thambalagamu, Kantale Divisional Secretariat have been infected by the Sena caterpillar menace.
Maize should be cultivated with care. Only recommended urea should be sprayed on it. When urea is sprayed in excess, the damage caused by Sena increases. An acre of land should consist 20 to 22,000 crops. If it exceeds that, the damage caused by the caterpillar increases.
In more local news, a group of bhikkhus engaged in a protest requesting the government to refrain from burying the bodies of people who have died due to COVID-19. The protest was staged by a group of bhikkhus along with the representatives of civil societies.
The protest was staged opposite the presidential secretariat. A memorandum was handed over by the group of protesters, was accepted by the Minister of Health Pavitra Wanyarachi. The memorandum states that the corona cremation should be legalized in accordance with the recommendations of the expert committee appointed by the Ministry of Health. As the Supreme Court has approved the decision, there is a background in the country that all corona bodies should be cremated. Therefore, the bhikkhus requested the president not to change the existing law and take steps to bury the corona bodies.
We request Minister Ali Sabri to refrain from changing the law just because you are the Minister of Justice. We remind him that if he does it, he will have to face the consequences. A majority of the Theros here have faced legal issues for helping the government into power. The fact that we have to come back to the streets once again is proof that this government has failed.
Meanwhile, the Interfaith Committee of the Amarapura and Ramanya Samagri Chapter Sangha Sabha has appealed to the President to highlight the requirement of burying COVID-19 victims.
The appeal says that Article 14E of the Constitution highlights the religious practices observed in the country and adds that Islam devotees as well as Christians bury their dead as a religious practice. The committee says that though a gazette was issued on the 11th of April 2020 stating that COVID-19 deaths should be cremated, it has been 8 months since the gazette was issued and a substantial amount of research has been carried out regarding this over the period. The committee says that they are of the opinion that COVID-19 deaths should be buried subject to conditions on a scientific basis. The Interfaith Committee of the Amarapura and Ramanya Chapter Sangha Sabha has requested the President to call an emergency meeting of the stakeholders, including doctors, virologists, specialists and religious leaders to discuss this matter.
On the cusp of his departure from the White House, US President Donald Trump has finally signed a $2.3 trillion financial package that is crucial to millions of jobless Americans after coming under pressure from legislators but imposed a number of conditions.
Coastal areas will be mostly affected by the current weather. The Meteorological Department warns that wind speeds could be increased up to 80 km per hour in the east and northeastern sea areas. Winds will be strong at 60 km per hour along the coast of Kankasanthurei to Batiklo via Trincomalee. The Meteorological Department requests fishermen in the Ukkaveli area in Trincomalee to refrain from setting out to sea. Meanwhile, a 65-year-old father of 3 died after being struck by lightning in Sampur last night. 25 houses in Anbuvelipuram, Alamthotam, Varudanagar villages in Trincomalee have been inundated. Roads and houses in the Muttur area are also inundated.
How will the results of the ongoing test series between Sri Lanka and South Africa impact their respective test rankings? The rankings based on potential results were explained during the Sports Centre program broadcast yesterday at 9:30 p.m. on TV1.
The Boxing Day test matches commenced yesterday between Australia and India, New Zealand versus Pakistan, and of course our very own Sri Lanka versus South Africa. Let's look at the results of South Africa and Sri Lanka's test series will impact the test rankings of both the sides. At this point of time, Sri Lanka placed 5th in the test rankings with 91 points, whereas South Africa is placed 6th with 90 points. In case if Sri Lanka goes on to win the test series by 2-0, Sri Lanka will strengthen their position in the test rankings at the number 5 position with 96 points, whereas South Africa will drop down to the 7th position with 85 points. If Sri Lanka goes on to win the test series by 1-0, Sri Lanka still will be able to strengthen their position in the test rankings with 94 points at the number 5 position, whereas South Africa also will be able to stay at the number 6 position with 86 points. In case if South Africa unfortunately goes on to win the test series by 2-0, at this point of time Sri Lanka placed 5th in the points table or the rankings with 91 points. South Africa will elevate themselves to the 5th position with 96 points, whereas Sri Lanka will have to settle to the 7th position with 88 points. And if South Africa goes on to win the test series by 1-0, Sri Lanka placed 5th with 91 points. Sri Lanka will drop down to 6th position with 89 points, whereas South Africa will elevate themselves to the 5th position with 94 points. In case if the series between South Africa and Sri Lanka is level, Sri Lanka placed 5th
South Africa plays 6th at this point of time. There will not be any changes in terms of the rankings, even though if they win, if the series is leveled 1-all or 0-all. At this point of time, there are two more series are currently been happening. Australia is playing India at this point of time. The results of Australia and India's test matches, test series, will not impact the test rankings of South Africa and Sri Lanka, because these two sides have been ranked higher than Sri Lanka and South Africa in the test rankings. However, New Zealand and Pakistan are playing another series, say New Zealand. But in case if Pakistan goes on to win that particular series against New Zealand, there will be some shifting happens between the rankings with Sri Lanka and South Africa in that particular points table. Since 2011, only two sides have beaten New Zealand in their home soil, which means it's going to be a tough task for Pakistan to win a series in New Zealand, which means Sri Lanka's position in the test rankings is secure.
And with that insightful report, we end this evening's bulletin of lunchtime news on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Jayamal Ratnayak. In case you missed any of these stories and much more, simply log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. Also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Take care, stay safe and have yourself a nice day.